Hi everybody, my name is Alessandra Lanzoni and I am an Italian astrologer. This is the first of two videos that summarize a lecture I delivered online on April the 18th, 2020, in which I try to look at the coming years to gain insight into what lies ahead of us, and then begin to analyze the harmonious aspect pattern of the three outer planets that will begin to take shape in 2025, going on until 2032, in which the long waxing sextile of the Neptune-Pluto cycle is the leading aspect. Let's start from next year. The main aspect between slow planets that characterizes 2021 is the square between Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus. It's a waning square, linked to a Saturn-Uranus cycle that started with the conjunction of these two planets in Sagittarius in 1988. In Italy, 1988 was a tense year, tormented by a long series of kidnappings for ransom, mafia attacks, and the peak of attacks in South Tyrol by the neo-Nazi terrorist group Ein Tirol. In April, the Red Brigades killed Senator Roberto Ruffilli, an advisor of Prime Minister Ciriaco De Mita. So it seems a cycle characterized by strong social tensions and unrest. At international level, 1988 was a crucial year in the early history of the Internet, and it was also the year of the first computer virus. Moreover, this year is marked by the birth of Al-Qaeda, as well as the beginning of the gradual dissolution of the Soviet Union and the disintegration of the Iron Curtain. There were also many skyjackings, air crashes, and accidents involving airplanes, airports, and trains, including the Ramstein disaster. Next year, the Saturn-Uranus square will be exact 3 times in February, June, and December. This square speaks to us of a strained relationship between concepts such as conservatism and innovation, change and resistance to change, repression and freedom, the restrictions imposed by the state in our deeply interconnected society, Saturn in Aquarius, and the need for autonomy felt by local communities, Uranus in Taurus. I think we are going to see the creation of small communities networking together that will begin to adopt non-monetary exchange systems like barter, as well as local trading systems based on the use of alternative forms of currency, such as complementary currencies, where goods are substituted by social bonds and where solidarity and social cohesion allow to overcome the poverty created by market economy based exclusively on private interests and profit. In fact, these squares are between two fixed signs linked to the concepts of common good, Aquarius, and personal goods, Taurus. Therefore, I believe that throughout 2021, we will have to cope with the heavy consequences of the pandemic, not without strong conflicts. In 2022, the only important aspect between slow planets is the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Pisces of April the 12th. I consider Neptune a yin female planet, linked to the archetype of the Great Mother, that in Pisces is strongly related to the Heavenly Mother. I am of the opinion that in 2022, we will see a significant surge of spirituality, an intensification of the devotion to the Virgin Mary, and probably a Marian apparition. I've made a search in this connection, and I found out that two of the most important Marian apparitions recognized by the Church, that is, the apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe and the apparition of Our Lady of Lourdes, happened both when Neptune was on the 24th degree of Pisces, that is, on the same degree of the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction of April 2022. In particular, during the previous transit of Neptune in Pisces that began in 1847 and ended in 1861, the apparitions of Our Lady of Lourdes happened between February the 11th and July the 16th, 1858. In that period, Neptune transited from 2115 to 2450 Pisces, with Jupiter in sextile aspect from Taurus. During the previous transit of Neptune in Pisces that goes from 1684 to 1698, we have the apparition of Our Lady of the Elevation in Ecuador between November the 12th and 13th, 1695. On that occasion, Neptune was at 2354 Pisces, with Jupiter in opposition from Virgo. Going still back in time, we have the apparitions of Our Lady of Guadalupe that happened between December the 9th and the 12th, 1531, in Tepeyac, near Mexico City. On that occasion, Neptune was at 2313 Pisces, with Jupiter trining it from Scorpio. In 2022, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction perfects itself at 2358 Pisces. That is exactly where Neptune was transiting in the other three apparitions that happened 165 years one after the other, a period that corresponds to the orbit of Neptune. Moreover, I think that starting from this conjunction, the feminine approach to life will be greatly revalued. Women will have a greater relevance, and I'm convinced that they will be the bearers of a message of rebirth that is going to see the light starting from 2025. In 2023, the most important astrological event is the first ingress of Pluto into Aquarius from March the 23rd to June 10th. That is, for a period of about 2.5 months. This first transit of Pluto in Aquarius worries me a lot, because its ingress into this sign, while the other slow planets haven't still changed sign to form the harmonious triangle that we'll see later on. In fact, Saturn and Neptune are still in Pisces, and Jupiter and Uranus are still in Taurus. Makes me think of a Pluto that is free to express itself in an unrestrained way, like a dictator, from one of the most powerful degrees of the zodiac. We can imagine the Capricorn-Aquarius cusp as the top of the Olympus. It's the meeting point of the two main patterns according to which we build structures. Hierarchical pyramidal structures in Capricorn and open network structures in Aquarius, and in which these two patterns have the possibility to jointly act with more power and effectiveness into the world. It is not by chance that the presidential inauguration ceremony in the United States is always at midday of January the 12th. That is when the sun transits exactly on this point of the zodiac. I fear that in the couple of years in which Pluto is going to transit on this cusp, while the triangle with Neptune and Uranus hasn't still perfected itself, the so-called elites that are more or less overtly governing this world will do all they can to establish the so-called New World Order. In 2024, this heavy atmosphere intensifies even further. In addition to the unbridled presence of Pluto on the Capricorn-Aquarius cusp, there will also be the waxing square of the Jupiter-Saturn cycle beginning on December the 21st of this year. That tells us that the new figures and issues that are going to emerge at the end of this year will find strong opposition in 2024. Moreover, there is also the waxing semi-square of the Saturn-Pluto cycle that has begun last January the 12th. And according to my study of the Saturn-Pluto cycle, the waxing semi-square always corresponds to the first shock of the cycle after the conjunction. On the other hand, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus will be the bearer of the new. In 2024, with the transit of Uranus on the moon of the chart of the European Union, the Union can possibly break into two, thus creating a union of Mediterranean countries and a union of the North European countries. In fact, barely a month after the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, Uranus will begin to stimulate the T-square of the EU chart, firstly squaring Saturn, then opposing Mars, conjoining the Moon, and lastly opposing Pluto, between the end of May and the beginning of June 2024. Then in late November and in December 2024, and lastly in March 2025. I would like to draw your attention on the fact that in the EU chart, Uranus comes from the 6th house, where it is conjunct to Neptune in Capricorn. So changes will begin to be perceived already starting from the trine of transiting Uranus to this conjunction. That is from the summer of 2022 and then in the spring of 2023 to be completed in 2024-2025. 2025 is the first year in which we will begin to feel the new winds of change. The beginning of a new paradigm with the ingress of Neptune and Saturn in Aries and of Uranus in Gemini. In fact, in a relatively short lapse of time, these planets will form an harmonious aspect pattern of this kind that suggests a sudden change of energies. This will be much more evident in 2026, when the sextiles and the trine among Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto will be all exact within a very short lapse of time, and particularly in the month of July. 2026, 2027, and the first half of 2028 are the periods in which this triangle will be more powerful and active. The Overlord period of the paradigm shift will be much longer and goes from the first ingress of Neptune in Aries in March 2025 to the last Neptune-Pluto sextile of February 2032. Together, that happens together with the exit of Saturn and Uranus from Gemini and their entry into Cancer. In these 7 years, the world as we know it will change so deeply that it's very difficult for us now even trying to imagine it. We have the possibility to witness a new great period of renaissance and rebirth. I would like to draw your attention on the fact that both the two sextiles and the trine belong to the waxing phase of their respective cycles. And therefore, these three aspects are all devoted to birthing the new with great strength. The Uranus-Pluto trine originates from the conjunction of these two planets in Virgo of the mid-60s. The Uranus-Neptune sextile comes from the conjunction in Capricorn of 1993, while the Neptune-Pluto sextile comes from the conjunction in Gemini of 1891-1892. And the Neptune-Pluto sextile is the true conductor of the paradigm shift. In fact, this is the aspect that will last longer and that is going to be exact as many as 13 times in 7 years. Just to let you see how important and transformative this sextile is, in the next video, I'll accompany you in a very long journey back in time, in the course of which you will see how every time there is this aspect, that is more or less every 500 years, mankind changes radically its outlook on life and the world. So don't miss the next vid. Bye for now.